Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on an extended body foam Hellgrammite. This idea was born out of extended body foam stonefly that I just did a video on here a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I was moving along with my bigger flies. It's what I usually start off the season, tying my stoneflies and woolly buggers and larger nymphs. And I was like, you know something, I'm going to try to do a Hellgrammite, the same style that I did for the extended body yellow stonefly. So this is a Hellgrammite, otherwise known as a Dobson fly. And so this is the rubber-legged version. I'm using this honey-colored rubber leg material. This is square. Comes in a comes packaged like this. So we just take a strand of that off, and those are for these little vent tubes that are on the side. And use that. I have done it with biots. See, I got a piece of foam behind that so you can see it. The biots look really great. They're very realistic looking. This one's a little bit bigger. This one might be 3-inch or 3.5-inch overall length, but yeah, it's a darker color on top with a sepia, dark brown, a little bit of yellow, and some olive. So just basically kind of camouflage dotted up on the top, and then that cream color with some little yellow sphericals on the bottom. Just basically little yellow dots surrounded by some of the sepia. It gives it the look of the natural. And then it's got a couple of wing cases and dark black head, so that painted jig head works just great with that, with some rubber legs on this one. So I did this one with biots, and I was like, you know, it's like 18 biots, and it was like an hour I'm messing around like to get that lined up. So I decided to go back to the rubber legs. So for these vent tubes, they kind of look like a they basically look a lot like, I gotta get my thread on there first. They look a lot like a centipede. I sketched a picture. A lot of the books that I have that have a picture of this, they're copyrighted books, so I just did a quick sketch. They definitely have the black head and wing patches, and like the honey colored legs. They're kind of olive mottled brown on top, and then tannish cream on the bottom. Yeah, this fly definitely turns into like an art project, but it's a fun fly to tie, and I'm sure it's going to work great for, especially for smallmouth or large weary trout. This is just the extended body, the foam part here, like I've got in the needle, and we're going to start with that. So this is the first step to do the extended body, and then that's the abdomen. So the thorax and everything is going to be tied on a jig hook. So I'm using a 1/16 ounce. This is just a an Eagle Claw 1/16 ounce jig head. It's about a size 6 hook, and 1/16 ounce. I painted it black, and then hit it with some color shift blue, and just gave it some shine. 2 coats of like Rust-Oleum. Let that dry, and then put the color shift as a lacquer, so it's a little bit of a harder paint. So hopefully that'll hold up. As you fish it near the bottom. But there again, with the hook up, and then with this foam, there's going to be an extended body on that. So something like that. Head will be up to it. I cut the foam, this 2mm foam. Comes in sheets like this, different colors. This is tan, and it's 2mm thick. I cut it 8mm wide and 3 inches long. So this extended body is going to be about 1.5 inches long. I'm going to fold that over, 8mm wide, and cut a taper So I'm going to fold it exactly in half. Put a little bit of a crease in it so it'll stay. And line them up, and then you know, kind of carefully at an angle, like a 45-degree angle, come in so it climbs up about a quarter of an inch or so up the side at an angle to give it the taper that the natural has. They're a very prolific insect that live in the streams in the northeast here and across the northern U.S. It is a food staple for fish. These are they're great at crawling along the bottom. They're like considered like a clinging style fly. They cling to the rocks on the bottom, and they're fairly agile, moving along the bottom. But when they get washed in the current, when they get displaced in the current, they struggle to swim. So they undulate when they try to swim. And then this foam's got some bendiness to it, flexibility, so that with a jig head and the current, and then these rubber legs have got a little bit of movement to them as well. And then on the thorax, you'll see we'll put some nice long brown mottled legs. On the abdomen, it's not legs; they're actually like a breathing apparatus or apparati. Those little vent tubes that come out on the side. Do a few wraps, maybe like 5 or 6 wraps on the needle. Cut off the waist here. So the nymph, or the larval stage, is called a Hellgrammite, and then the adult is called the Dobson fly, or some people call them salmon fly. We got our foam that we cut our angles into, basically just to give it a taper that the natural has on the abdomen. And then take a lighter just to clean up those cuts, because the foam tends to like to bounce when you're cutting it. Do some weird things so the cut's a little jagged, so usually you got to clean it up just a little bit with a lighter. And calm it down a little bit. Get those little jagged pieces to disappear. And we get that lined up right in the crease of the fold. That on the needle. That's going to be our jig for tying this up. So I'm going to get that thread about where I want the first segment to start. And I start with that one a little smaller, so it's about 2 millimeters. You got to give yourself enough room to get the leg, to get these little rubber legs pushed through. So about 2 millimeters, and give it a few wraps and a tug so it doesn't spin. It unwind itself, and we got a little bobbin threader here. I'm going to push that through, and then grab the rubber leg on the other side with it. And I had one cut out. Here it is. Alright, and then I'll cut that little tab off of there. You can even cut these at a slight angle to give them kind of a point, because the natural breathing tubes actually have come to a point. Alright, so that's spun a little bit, we got it. And then I want to push this in about as much as I want to see coming out the other side, which is about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to push that through about 1/8 and then pull that through and just about get my 1/8. I'm going to pull it just a little bit more, right about there. Because if you feed it through too much and then pull it through, you got to go back and forth with it. To position it, and it's actually kind of tight in there, so you can break these legs because it's actually tight. Although I've only got like 2 wraps and not cinched down, so just loose enough to get that through there, but tight enough to hold it from spinning. And then line it up for about 1/8 of an inch on this side. And I cut that just a little short, so I'm going to just even it up, pull it through this side a little bit. Okay, and then we can give that, give it a total of about 5. On this back wrap here, because of the taper and that foam is thin, you can cut through it. I'm using 6/0 thread. This is a Danville gold thread to match the tan. I'm gonna give that a little tug, and then we'll get ready for our next section here. But before I do that, and the way that is I'll do that part over. So I come through. I'm tying over the top with the thread. So my wraps are going over the top of the foam, and then around the two segments that are sandwiched together, and then feed it underneath the top piece of foam, which then pushes the thread will be over top of the needle, and go around the needle underneath the bottom foam, or actually you're going over the top of the bottom foam. So underneath the top one, over top of the bottom one, so that you're on the needle. And then these segments are about 3 millimeters between each of them. The first one I did at about 2. We're going to add a little graduation to the taper here, so we're going to go up to 3, maybe 2.5 on this one. You don't want to do it too close together, otherwise the threader won't push through. And if you make them too wide, then the legs will be, or the breathing tubes will be loose. Okay, so now I've got that next segment started. Give it 2 wraps, and we'll tighten that up with about 5 by the time we get to that part. But for right now, what I want to do is these legs are sticking straight up, and I actually want them to point back at like a 45 like the naturals do. So got a little bit of super glue here, a little half a drop on the push pin here, and we're just going to get a minimal amount on that, and then we fold it down with the scissors, hold it for 10 seconds, push it against the foam. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then that holds it in the position that I want it, which is like at about a 45 degree angle facing back. And then we'll go over to the other side and do the same. Put like a half a drop, minimal amount. Put just a little bit behind that on the foam. Take your scissors. It's going to flip on me. And pin it back at about a 45. Hold it for 10 seconds. And that holds that in position. About 3 millimeters. Start getting that graduated look as it goes up the taper of this abdomen. And just gave it about 3 wraps. I'll give it a little tug to try to hold it there so it doesn't spin. Push this through, and I try to go over top of the needle and then just stay consistent with that. You can feel it with this thing as you're pushing it through. Kind of angle it up just a little bit and go right over the needle, and then come out the where the 2 halves fold together on the other side. Put our pin in here, keep drying up. Okay, I'll grab our leg material, and this is kind of a honey colored, because they do come to a point, these little breathing tubes, so you can come in and get that to somewhat of a point. And then I want to feed it in about as much as I want to see poking through, about 1/8 of an inch, and pull that through and give it just a little more, position it. And cut the other side here. There again, about where I want to see it. Even it up. And then there's 2 sections. We'll tighten that up just a little bit. Give it an extra wrap and just a little tug. Basically, we want to see that taper. So underneath the top piece, around the needle, over top of the bottom piece, under the needle, come into position, and yeah, maybe just add just a little bit, so it's just maybe a little bit more than on this next section than 3 mil, and start graduating these segments as we go up the body just a little bit. Give it that natural taper. 3, give it a tug, try to hold it there. Stick our threader between the 2 halves. Try to go over top of the needle, angle it up just a little bit, and feed it through, push it through between the 2 halves. Stick that in about 1/8 of an inch. Pull it through. That's just about right. We'll pull it back out just a little. That's pretty tight. I don't know if you can see that. I gotta really stretch that and pull on it to get it to move. So that's why it's good to when you feed it through the threader to get about as much as you want to see on this one side. Otherwise you can break the stuff. Although that held up because I went slow with it. And I'm going to kind of just try to match the one behind it. Even it up. Orient them a little bit where you want them. And go on to the next segment. And then this moves right along once you get going. Of course, I'm trying to explain this and talk at the same time and everything, but once you get moving on these, it's actually a fun way to tie a fly, I find, because it moves right along. So there's 4 wraps. I give it a little tug. We'll end up giving it 5. Push your threader through, top of the needle, out the other side. Get our rubber leg in the threader, like so. About 1/8 of an inch. We're going to start making these just a little bit longer now as it moves up the taper. So this next one's just slightly longer, something like about there. So you go from like 1/8 to 3/16 up to about 1/4 on the last set. And we'll do our next section, and I think it's about 5 sections that you have to tie on the needle, so that when you go to offer it up to the hook, you've got these sections tied up that are going to extend beyond the hook shank. And keep a head right out here. Okay, so what I do here is I line up where I think the hook is going to poke through, because when this is extended out, it's very difficult. It's more difficult to tie these sections, so you might as well do it. That's what the needle's about, to give it support to tie these, because of the flexibility of the foam. So I want to line this up about where that hook point's going to come out. And it looks like I want to do one more section. One more segment. And then we can transfer this to the hook, and the first part of it's done. So if I wasn't yakking and trying to explain this, it would probably take about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to do one of these. And if you pre-cut your foam, like let's say you want to do half a dozen of these or whatever, cut out your foam, get all your leg material and everything out, and then just tie up this part of the fly while you got the needle in the vise. Alright, phone rang there, so we'll clear that out. All right, so this is the last section before we transfer this to the hook. So we've got these breather tubes. They're kind of tapered up, so this one's going to be just a little bit longer than the one before it. And then there's that. I do like to cut these as I go, just so that you're less likely to hit something you don't want to get. And so there's the first part of this fly. And yeah, we'll move on to getting a hook in the vise and finish it up. We'll finish this up, and then we're on to the second part of this, and that's going to want to spin, so pull out enough thread for yourself. You may have to hold it with your finger. And you got to watch out for these little nubs sticking out here. Go around those. And I just like to get like four wraps with the whip finisher. Pull that tight. I always go side to side. Pull it both ways, and that'll tighten that knot up. And we'll cut off the excess thread here without hitting one of those legs. And there we have it. And we'll get on to the second part with the hook. And when we pull that off, you'll have your tag end of the thread here. And basically what you do is just give that a tug, and it tightens it up back to the first section. And you can trim that off and get it out of the way. And that's nice and tight, just like that. Alright, we'll get the hook in the vise and we'll carry on. Here we go. The black bulbous head that a jig head has on it is going to be, you know, match the natural really well. So, and then of course, there again, the hook will ride up. And we got the weight built in, so I'm going to fish this one on a spinning rod. It's a little too heavy for a fly rod. If you were fishing a short line with it, you could fish it on probably like a 6 or 7 weight fly rod. But all right, so what I do is I line up about where I want the foam to end for the head, and see where the hook wants to pop through. And in this case, it's like on that first segment. So and go in and we just pin one side of that foam, go down and try to get it centered left to right. And then if you go slow enough, you can kind of see where the hook is going to pop through, and if that's where you want it, or it wants to be, so that when I fold this up and come up for that 1/2 that's pinned by the hook, so that's slid up on there. And then, yeah, we'll just match it up, see where that's going to end, and then that's right there. So there we go. So it's basically through the one segment. I was wondering if I'm holding it too close to the camera or not, but I did just get a new lens for close-up work. So, all right, so there's that. That part's on there, so now we'll get it in the vise. And we'll continue on. We got to get our thread back on there. Get it nice and secure in the vise so that that doesn't mess with you. Of course, everything else is gonna. Okay, we'll reattach our thread. This is that Danville 6/0 thread in gold, tannish gold. Okay, so I also have a piece of raffia, or actually this is called Swiss straw or raffia. It's just a cellophane type of. It's crinkled, kind of crinkly, and it gives a nice shell look for the wing cases. So I'm going to incorporate that. I cut it a little bit wider than the foam. So the foam's 8mm. I might cut this 9. I could put it on first before I put the foam through. Make it a little easier, but this isn't too bad. And then what we want to do is get it centered, about centered. Several wraps over, and then we'll just we'll pinch wrap it forward so that it's out of the way, but it's there for when we want it for the wing cases. It is something that a fish tooth could catch, so we're definitely going to want to put some kind of protection over that, either varnish or In this case, I've got some thick UV resin to build it up a little bit, and it just adds a little bit of profile. All right, so then we'll come back on the hook shank about where we want to get our next follow-up segment to continue this. And that's good right there. This on top. We'll catch that top piece and then come underneath. And we're just we're just going right over, because this is going to stay on here. On the needle we did it slightly different, but in this case here we just go right straight over. And see, I made this segment, the next segment, just a little bit wider. This is where the wing cases start, and then there's a little piece of armor. It almost looks like it has 3 wing cases, but it's actually kind of like a little head armor, because they have 2 sets of wings. So there's 2 wing cases. Now that we've got that on there, you can go back through and feed the legs through afterwards, which I think I will do it that way. So we have the first segment tied off onto the hook, and it's going to want to spin. You got to kind of keep it top side. If it's got a little twist to it, that's all right, because they look like they're struggling in the current anyway, but I want to kind of keep it on top. I'm going to bring this raffia paper over now that we've got that first segment attached to the hook, the first segment that is attached to the hook, because we'll be doing subsequent ones coming up here. But I just want to basically get this back where I want it, and I use the back side of a razor blade. So I want the 2 wing cases. We're going to fold it over, so we want to put pressure on it, on the right spot there on that second segment. Okay, actually it's folded over. The segment is tied here, but I'm going to fold it back so it's folded over, so it's going to actually come back to this next segment here. And then we'll come up and over and just catch that. Make sure it's positioned properly, so it's basically doubled over. And this is just going to add a little extra profile. So there's one there. I'll cinch down on it. Now we're going to go under the foam, around the hook shank, and come out where we want to for the next one. And then that puts us into position for the next wing case. Use the back of the razor so that you can fold it right where you want to fold it. And push down on it, it'll give that fold. And just make sure you get that positioned how you want it. Don't want it to come, want it to overlap the first one, the first wing case, but then leave a little space there so that it shows as 2. I'm going to come up where we want for the next segment, which is right about there. Come forward just a little bit, and it'll leave us enough room for our legs. There's that next segment. I'll pinch that down good. That tied pretty good. Secured good. Give it a little tug. And then we're going to basically do this last section here. So this one here, like I said, it's more like an armor plate, and less of a wing case. So we'll just go straight over the top of that. We want to catch that foam because this is going to be our securing wrap for the foam to the shank. So I want to make sure we catch the top and the bottom. I've got a rotary vise here so I can kind of spin it up so that I can see I'm actually catching that. Catching that foam, pinching it down. We're going to put some dubbing in between these as well, so and that'll just help fill it in between the back of the head and where the thorax starts here. So just want to make sure that we catch that foam, because that's going to keep it from spinning. Get the bottom and the top. And that's about 10 wraps or so there, but that'll keep it nice and secure. Now we can come forward and catch our Swiss straw. Things oriented where you want it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, because they look like they're struggling when they're dislodged from the bottom and they're in the current. And we'll just trim off that. Yeah, this fly definitely turns into an art project, but it'll be worth it, because it's going to be a real fish catcher. I know it's going to be, so that's why I'm sharing it. And so now I've got this SLF dubbing, and it's got a little bit of sparkle in it, but black. I'm going to go between the head and the little armor plate that's behind the head. That just kind of helps fill in the gap, and yeah, gives it a little extra something as far as it being like a fly traditionally tied fly. Some dubbing on it, and we just want to make sure that that's filling in that gap. Let's see something here. I want to leave where I can get the legs through, though. Just make sure you're not covering up where you're gonna feed the legs through. And that's a little dubbing trick there. Once you get it wrapped around the hook, even loosely, then you get something to leverage against to give your dub a spin, and you can even pull on it, tighten it right up so that it's not on there loosely. But that's going to be good enough for that. And at this point is where I'm going to feed the legs through before I tie it off, in case I need to back up or whatever. So we'll find our little threader, and make sure we're going to get in our 6 legs. So this is the section that is attached to the first section that's attaching the foam to the shank, and I'm going to put in the first section of the legs there. And for that, I've got this mottled brown for the legs, which are just a little darker than the honey-colored breathing tubes on the abdomen. Let's see, I've got one kind of cut hanging here, so we'll take that one. And this stuff, I like to take the whole piece off there if I can do it without messing up the whole string of it. Yep, got that one piece off. A few small ones there. I can use smaller flies, but yeah, some brown square rubber legs. And these are going to be noticeably longer. Make those nice and long. And I want to, that segment's got a little bit more of a space to it. It's a little bit over 3 millimeters. That one broke, but I still got some there. 3 millimeters. I'm going to pull it forward. I'm going to leave that one longer than the back. The back legs are the shortest. The set in the middle are the longest, and then the front ones are a little shorter than that, so something about like that. And again, you can position this in that segment. You got 3 millimeters, so I push this one forward. I'm going forward as far as I can, and then you can kind of seesaw it back and forth a little bit, work it forward so that it's just distinct from the back legs. Take our scissors, and we will trim this one to length, probably about 3 or 4 millimeters longer than the back ones. And there again, you can always come back and trim them. And then you have I got one shorter piece here. Might be a little too short, so I'm gonna just make sure I've got enough and grab another piece here. That one's perfect. That one's long enough. So this one here is going to be the last set of legs, and I want to go forward in the crease just to keep them distinctive from one another. Can't really beat the rubber legs as far as the movement goes. And that's just about, that was perfect, that length. I don't even have to trim that one. Just even it up side to side. We got all our legs on. I was going to, because these sections are a little bit farther between, you know, from 3 millimeter, you know, somewhere between 3 and 4, a little bit wider. I thought that they might be loose in there. I might have to put super glue on them, but as you can see, you know, a trout tooth or, you know, smallmouth, you're not going to have to worry about the teeth, but if a trout tooth gets caught on that, it might pull it out, but that's why I like to carry a half dozen of them. So anyway, there is that part of it. For the next part of this fly, we're going to protect that Swiss straw, dark brown Swiss straw that I cut 9 millimeters, 8 millimeter wide body. So this gives it just a little bit of overhang. You can see the sheen of it. Looks nice. Sometimes I'll even darken the foam, which I forgot to do with a black magic marker. But you can go over the top of this with black, and it'll still keep its profile. And the shine of it is it's very buggy looking. So we'll darken that part of it up. Just gonna give it a little definition there, mottled look to it. And there's the 2 wing cases. And then use the razor blade to lift up between the wing cases here if you can. Lift that up a little bit. Get this one to lift up just a little bit. And put the resin on it. Hit it with the light. I'm doing this just to give it so that it looks like it's got a little flare to it. Give as much of the right profile as possible for that effect. And I'm gonna get this other one here. I'm gonna lift it up just a little bit. Make it look like it's flared. And then this will also protect it, because that straw with a toothy critter is going to get ripped if you don't have some kind of varnish or something to protect it. Flip it the right way. Get the razor blade out of there before it glues it to it. That one up a little bit. Hit those good. We got a little flare going on there, a little humpage. And I'm using this thick Fly Shack UV resin. It's a thick mix. You can get thin or medium. I like this thick because it builds. And I'll just protect that whole piece of that stuff. Give it a good UV shot. And then I do take them, set them out on the deck rail with this thicker stuff just to make sure that the sun's out today. So do that. And then I'm going to coat it again. Spread it around with the... Okay, that is dry. It's nice and dry. So we'll just give it another coat. Build it up a little bit and help to protect it. And adds some nice sheen. Before I hit it with the light, I'll take the needle. Just spread it back. Make sure it's coated good. That stuff is nice and thick. And it really does add to the profile. Quite nice. So, look how thick that is. That's great. The next part of this is to color it up. So, all right, continuing with the art project, Hellgrammite fly, extended body foam fly. The next thing is to start coloring it up. Now I did take a hot razor blade, heated it up with a lighter, and then bent these legs. You got to do that carefully. The backside of a razor blade, bend it over, and you have to heat the razor blade itself. I did that off camera because it's a little tedious, but you don't have to do that. And then I followed it up with a drop of super glue on each joint just to hold it there. This back one I decided not to do that too because it's oriented kind of curling up a little bit, so I just decided to leave that one. But these are real boingy, and so in the current they're going to move around anyway, so it's great to add that struggling look to the fly. But I'm going to take this black magic marker here, a permanent marker, and just start coloring up the black part of this head of this fly and the wing cases is black, so all the way around. Do that all the way around the head. I want to find my other black marker. On the bottom as well, it's black. You just want to carefully do that. And then we will put a little bit of UV resin on that as well, and it adds a little shine to it. So that is that part. We get our black dubbing, get our legs, and we'll continue to follow this back. Actually, I didn't tie it off yet, so we'll whip finish that. Just make sure you don't get caught around legs or the tie-in for the hook. And I have two size whip finishers, so I'm going to go with the smaller size for this part. When I did the back part on the needle, the abdomen part, and I was doing those small little breather tubes, I used a larger whip finisher to get around. You know, it's got more of a throw. It's a little longer on the front here. The other size one that I've got to help get around the rubber material I used on the abdomen. 4, I'll go 5, even 6 and 7. We got room in there. And we don't have to follow it up with a second one. But with whip finishing knots, especially on a larger fly like this, you got room to pull it side to side and just pull it tight. It won't come undone. And trim that off without trimming any rubber legs or anything. There we go, bump the camera. And so now we've got down to about there. And then on this last part, I want my green marker. All right, so on the top part of this fly, actually where the wing case side of this is going to be down. But that doesn't matter because they get disoriented when they're going through the current anyway, and they float upside down, right side up. So what we want to do here is just get the top part of this and kind of do a mottled dotted up green. That gives it kind of like the natural camouflage look of the natural fly. And let's get some on that abdomen there, and like that. And then I go over top of that with the sepia because I just don't happen to have olive. It's actually more of a dark olive. And this will do that by mixing these two colors. This is kind of like a sand. What are they calling this color? They're calling this color, it's a AD marker, desert tan. It's kind of like a sand color over top of that. And yeah, you can just pretty much just do a stripe down the leading edge. That just covers up that lighter tan, which the reason I chose tan for this instead of a darker color is we could basically kind of leave the belly, although there is some yellow on the bottom, little yellow sphericals on the underneath, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But that gives it kind of like an olivey camo look to the top. You can even go back over it a few times, and it helps to darken it. And we're almost there. Just want to make sure that I didn't leave anything a lighter tan on the top. There's little crevices and stuff there. You got to get inside of the crevices or whatever, but that's probably close enough. Just darkens up that top because it's kind of like an olivey green, darker color to it. And then on the bottom, the way that I like to do that is with, I've got this yellow marker, permanent markers. These have got like a chisel tip on them. So you got a little point, and might even want to put this in a pair of hackle pliers. Take it right out of the vise. It's all tied off and everything. And a pair of hackle pliers. Should grab it this way. Get access to that, to the belly. And then there's little yellow sphericals on the bottom, so just like to go along and put those. Just kind of the finishing touch, really. And then on the other side as well, it's kind of right where those breathing tubes come out. If you find one in the stream and you flip it over, you'll see that it has these yellow markings on the bottom. Part of the breathing part of these insects. Probably one part of them is like respirations for taking air in, and then like an exhaust, little exhaust ports or whatever. I know dragonflies, these like I said, they don't, for locomotion or for getting through the water, they undulate when they try to swim, and they flip over and flop and they struggle in the current. Something like a dragonfly actually takes the water and shoots it out the back. If you ever observe a dragonfly in a pond, a dragonfly nymph, and you go to touch it with a stick or your finger or whatever, they'll shoot away real quick, and you can even see the water is shot out the back like a like a jet ski or something, like water propulsion. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, these aren't quite as agile swimmers as like maybe a mud nymph or what else? Hexagenia nymphs. Any of the drakes. The nymphs actually are really good swimmers. So then I follow that up with a little bit of this. I follow that up with a little bit of this desert tan here too as well, and just to kind of, so I do the yellow first, so that you just kind of outline that a little bit very lightly. Makes those stand out. And I'll use the point of that chisel tip. That just adds a little bit to it, and then up in the abdomen there. Right where it joins the wing case section of the thorax. And it goes to a darker brown. I mean, yeah, a little darker than the tan that's on there. I'm going to darken that up just a little bit. And pretty much call it good. It's got a little bit of yellow on the bottom. I actually outline this on the sides. Let's make those yellow dots stand out. And yeah, there you have it. The Hellgrammite extended body foam fly, weighted with a jig head, so you can cast it on a spinning rod. It's a little too heavy for a fly rod unless you're throwing a 7 or an 8 weight, maybe a 6 weight. And hey, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. There'll be more coming. This is just getting ready for fishing season, and I want to have a bunch of these different insects that the fish feed on.